An historic meeting seemingly off to a great start. Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid arriving in Morocco and becoming the first top Israeli official to visit the African nation in nearly 20 years. Greeted with fist bumps on the tarmac, Israeli Foreign Minister and alternate Prime Minister Yair Lapid landing in Rabat, Morocco for a host of high-level meetings opposite his counterpart Nasser Bourita and a number of other officials. And Lapid and Bourita's first meeting going way beyond the allotted time, a sign that relations may be warming even faster than expected. Then in welcoming the ties, Bourita adding that Hebrew origins are deeply rooted in Morocco's identity and that he hopes the regional peace can extend to the Palestinians as well.
للبدء في إجراءات لإعادة بناء الثقة بين كل الأطراف خدمة للسلام والاستقرار والازدهار والرخاء في المنطقة. إعادة بناء الثقة والحفاظ على الهدوء والإحجام عن كل ما من شأنه تأجيج التوتر عوامل أساسية لا بد منها لفتح أفق سياسي للنزاع الفلسطيني الإسرائيلي والحفاظ على حل الدولتين.
Lapid, for his part, though, focusing solely on the renewed relations, comparing the move to good parenting, quoting the Quran on peace, and finishing with how, quote, the only wars that have any meaning are those against poverty, ignorance, pandemics, and sickness, end quote.
The agreements that we will signing here today will bring our country's innovation and opportunities for the benefit of our children and their children after them, for years to come.
And not all talk. Lapid and Bourita signing 3 framework agreements on interministerial political consultations, cooperation on culture, youth, and sports, and air services between Israel and Morocco. Bourita saying that there are at least 10 more agreements in the pipelines. And finally, aside from the new agreements, Lapid also set to officially open the Israeli liaison office in Rabat, and later will head to Casablanca to pray with the Beth El synagogue from the local Jewish community. Lapid's arrival marking the first official top Israeli visit to Morocco since 2003 and the highest level meeting since the resumption of ties via the Abraham Accords last year. Jerusalem and Rabat cut off ties back in 2000 during the height of the Second Intifada. Moving on, the Israeli Corona Cabinet convening in emergency session Wednesday night in light of the quickly accelerating spread of the virus, and a number of new restrictions once again approved. ILTV's Chana Rifkin reporting.
Still holding out in hopes of preventing another lockdown. Israeli Health Ministry Director General Professor Nachman Ash saying that Israel will likely soon start providing third COVID vaccines to people over 40. And this as coronavirus officials also announcing a new list of limits for public life. Starting next week, Monday, August 16th, the Purple Pass will be back in full force in malls and other places of commerce. And occupancy will be restricted to 1 person per 7 square meters. Then on Wednesday, August 18th, the Green Pass plan will be extended to apply to all other branches of the economy, except for malls and places of commerce. And as for payments, for ages 3 through 12, tests will be financed by the state without restriction. For 12 and up, persons who are not vaxxed by choice will finance tests privately, and ages 0 through 3 are exempt. Additionally, events without marked seating in closed spaces will be capped at 1,000 people, 5,000 in open spaces. Events with marked seating will be restricted as per the Green Pass, and events in private homes or small venues where the Green Pass doesn't apply will be restricted to 50 people max indoors and 100 people outdoors. Meantime, the cabinet likewise approving of the Education Ministry's plan to resume in-school learning and a 2.5 billion shekel investment into healthcare infrastructure. New reports saying that the Education Ministry now refusing to provide its serological testing during study hours or without parental supervision. Moves that would make implementing the educational outline far more complicated and cumbersome. Likewise, while hospitals are excited about the cash infusion, many expressing skepticism over how realistic the plan really is. For one, the plan includes recruitment of some 2,000 new doctors, nurses, hospital staff, and paramedics, but experts argue that it takes time to recruit and train these people, meaning their contribution will be far from the silver bullet for the pandemic that the government claims it is.
In other news, Israeli Ambassador to the UN Gilad Erdan penning a letter on Tuesday to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Erdan calling to freeze funding to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, or UNRWA, for Palestinian schools in Gaza. And this after Hamas terrorists in the Strip blocked UN inspectors from visiting a terror tunnel located directly beneath an UNRWA school. Joining us with more details is ILTV anchor and correspondent Lidar Gravelazi. Lidar, thank you so much for being with us. Now, first of all, what can you tell us about this incident?
So, Aaron, basically what happened was UNMAS, which is the United Nations Mining Action Service, which is the body responsible for essentially eliminating the threat of explosives. They tried to arrive at an UNRWA school, or essentially a terror tunnel that was built underneath an UNRWA school, to search and make sure that there were no explosives, because as you know, the school year is about to start. They wanted to ensure that the UNRWA school was safe for children to enter and that there were no explosives left behind within the tunnel. But unfortunately, Hamas decided to block the UN inspectors and did not allow them from entering the school in the Zaytun neighborhood of Gaza. And essentially what happened then is that the UN also canceled another inspection, which was set for the Rafah neighborhood, where they found another terror tunnel under an UNRWA school.
So what does the UN have to say about all these incidents? I mean, the UN inspectors are being blocked from UN sites.
So Gilad Erdan penned a letter to the UN Secretary General. He hasn't received, as of yet, a formal response. But yesterday, in a press briefing, the spokesperson for the UN Secretary General, Stefan Dujarric, he said, our colleagues at UNRWA could give you the details when asked by a reporter about the incident. He said, what I can tell you is that it is critical for every UN premise anywhere in the world to be free of weapons or anything that would put that premise at risk. Now, he was pressed by the reporter. And again, he said, you have to talk to UNRWA about it. But later in the press briefing notes, it shows that he later shared a statement by UNRWA, which essentially protested what it said was the takeover of one of its schools by de facto authorities, in other words, by Hamas.
Terror tunnels and seizing schools, is this a common occurrence in Gaza then?
Absolutely. I mean, this is something that's been ongoing for years. These two terror tunnels that were built underneath the schools were discovered 2 months ago after the 11-day war between Israel and Gaza. Israel uncovered dozens of Hamas terror tunnels, many of them under schools, under hospitals. It's a tactic that Hamas uses so that when they fire rockets into Israel, like in the last Gaza war, and Israel tries to retaliate, it can't necessarily retaliate because it doesn't want to hit a school or, God forbid, a hospital. And so this is a clear Hamas tactic. It's something that they've been doing for years. In fact, I think we have a clip here of Fatih Hamad from ILTV. This is from 2008. So it just shows you how far back this strategy goes, where they essentially say that they use women and children as human shields against Israel. Let's take a look.
ولا يعلمون أن الشعب الفلسطيني قد طور من موته ومن بحثه على الموت، ولذلك أصبح الموت عند الشعب الفلسطيني صناعة تجيده النساء، تجيده كل من في هذه الأرض، يجيده الشيوخ، يجيده المجاهدون، ويجيده الأطفال. لذلك شكلوا دروعا بشرية من النساء والأطفال والشيوخ والمجاهدين ليتحدوا بذلك آلة القصف الصهيونية، وكأنهم يقولون للعدو الصهيوني إننا نحرص على الموت كما تحرصون على الحياة.
Wow. All right. So going back now to this latest incident, what will happen to these schools, and what about the children in these schools?
Right. So as you know, the school year is fast approaching. And after a year where most of these children had to learn by Zoom because of the coronavirus pandemic, they're supposed to go back to school. But unfortunately, because the United Nations couldn't access these schools to ensure their safety, UNRWA has decided not to let some 4,000 Palestinian students return to school until these institutions, these schools, can actually be rendered safe.
Wow. And can you maybe even give us a little bit more details than now about Gilad Erdan's letter to the UN Secretary General? Because other than freezing funding, what is he asking for? Especially now that we know that all these kids are going to be out of school for the time being, for the foreseeable future.
So he penned a letter, as we said, to the UN Secretary General. I'll read a few excerpts from this letter. He said that he called on him and all relevant UN bodies to condemn Hamas in no uncertain terms for its ongoing violations of international law and for the organization's attempts to prevent a full investigation of its actions and to avert accountability. And moreover, he requested that the UN freeze all funding of UNRWA's facilities in Gaza and bar the usage thereof until the completion of a thorough and independent investigation of Hamas's use and abuse of these institutions to advance its reign of terror. That's in the letter. He goes on to also say that the UN cannot allow its own schools and buildings essentially to be used as a sanctuary for terrorists and for terrorist activity. But the bottom line is that he's calling on the UN and to freeze UNRWA's accounts. And as we know, UNRWA is basically operates at the behest of donors, countries like the United States, the UK, the European Union, all these countries who are funding this organization. And until these organizations don't stop their funding and actually hold UNRWA and the UN and Hamas accountable, unfortunately, incidents like this will most likely continue.
All right, well, we know that we have similar calls to defund or at least pressure UNRWA from Impact SE educational reports, from UN Watch reports about staff members promoting anti-Semitism, etc. And of course, also by Gazans getting increasingly upset with Hamas for being used as human shields. So it's going to be very interesting to see if anything comes out of these reports anytime soon. Leidar Elazi, thank you in the meantime for shedding light on what's going on.
Thanks, Aaron.
All right, now changing gears, we have some turtle-tastic news to report. After rehabilitating from a serious injury at the National Sea Turtle Rescue Center in Palmachim, a loggerhead turtle named Stitch finally making her way back to the sea. Stitch was found by a fisherman 9 months ago with a hook stuck in her mouth, which caused her lungs to fill with water. In the meantime, from old turtles to young turtles, for the first time that we know of, baby loggerhead turtles are hatching on the shores of Eilat on Tuesday, and Israel's Nature and Parks Authority have been at the forefront of the event. So joining me now with more is Omri Omesi, Nature Reserves Park Ranger for Israel's Nature and Parks Authority. Omri, I'm so happy to have you with us. First of all, usually they're seen on the Mediterranean coast. So how significant is this first appearance in Eilat of these loggerhead babies?
The Eilat Bay is always surprising us. Every time that we think that we know everything, shows us that there are much more to learn. And every time that we think that we saw everything, a new surprise is on us. So it's very rare. It's only the second time that we see this species in Eilat. The last time was a few years ago when a young loggerhead turtle found in the bay, and it was very, very weird because we are not used to get this species in Eilat. It is part of the Indian Ocean, which Eilat Bay is part of, so we are not too surprised to see it here. But we never knew that those turtles are got here in South Point and laid eggs in this beach probably a few years ago, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago.
So does this signify some sort of, migration change?
I don't believe so, but it's very early to tell. What we do know is that turtles always come back to the shore where they hatch. So that female turtle, they decide to swim all the way here and get on our beach and lay eggs here. It's pretty stable assumption that this is the shore that she was born in. So it just proves that in a very short period of time that we study turtles, like 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, it's really short time to learn. So it's really a lot of fun to discover those kind of things.
Well, so now the Nature and Parks Authority, I know, has been keeping a close eye out for loggerheads in the area over the past few months, even blocking off a section of the beach to allow for a proper habitat to lay eggs in. Can you describe what it's like to observe what's going on there? I can hear a lot of noise in the background. Are maybe some kids and some other beachgoers enjoying the view as well?
Okay, so it all started like maybe 2.5 months ago when few young kids that thought that they are doing the right thing. They saw the female turtle getting on the beach, probably looking for a good place for eggs, and they decided on themselves to put her back in the water. This was the first encounter with the female turtle. And they posted on, I think, one of the social networks. And we were really surprised to see it's a brown turtle, loggerhead female turtle, and it's pretty obvious it's looking place that will lay her eggs. So we searched all the beaches during the next few days and weeks, and we located two nests, and very close to the time where she lays those eggs, we took those eggs and moved them to a secure area because there's not much room left in Eilat for a turtle to lay her eggs. So we need to take the eggs and put in a safe place, and this is something that we do pretty often at the Mediterranean. And yeah, we put a little camera on it, and we waited and waited until we saw the time has come. It's hotter than the Mediterranean, so the hatching point was only after 45 days, which is kind of short. It's a good time, I believe, to ask the public if they see a wounded animal or some animal that they think need attention. It's very, very important to call us Israel Nature and Park Authority. We will get there. We will do the best to help the animal, and it's pretty easy. It's 24 hours a day that you can call us, and we are coming. No, don't do anything on your own. Sometimes it looks like you need to do something, but it's better to let us decide.
All right, well, so I think that is a good place to let everybody know. Again, if you see a wildlife that you're concerned, you're not sure what's going on there, call star 3639 for the Nature and Parks Authority and let them handle it. Omri, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
All right, moving on. By now, you're all probably familiar with our friends from Ulpan Or, but how much do you think you know about their incredible dynamic curriculum used all over the United States, both in Jewish day schools as well as in charter and public schools? Well, to let us know more about the multi-layered and specially tailored curriculum, I sat down earlier this month with CEO and co-founder of Ulpan Or, Yoel Ganor, and Orit Tahan, senior Hebrew teacher at both a charter and public school in Florida. Orit, Yoel, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us, Aaron.
All right, so I'm actually going to start with you, Yoel. You know, tell us about the specifics of this curriculum. I understand that it's multi-layered. What does that mean? What does that include?
So talking about the multi-layer, you know, when we teach using our curriculum, what we have in mind, for instance, today I just interviewed a candidate, and she had very good English. So I asked her one question. Have you spent a long time outside of Israel in America? She said no. Then I asked her, have you watched a lot of American series? She said yes. So we know that watching movies, video clips, is a key to one of the layers. So all of our programs start with video clips, then we go to audio, to text, to translation into English. And when a student learns that way, he is immersed in the language. He owns Hebrew that way. This is one aspect of being multi-layer curriculum. The other aspect is that we support what's called, when the teacher teaches, it's a differential teaching or differential learning, because having in one group different levels of language, it's a big challenge for teachers, right? So our curriculum allows for that differential teaching, and this is another aspect of being multi-layer.
You got to meet the kids at their level.
Right.
Of course. So Orit, you know, I know that you've been using this Ulpan Or curriculum, and you have a lot of experience with it. You know, what do you love about it? What's your experience with it?
Okay, so if you're talking about love, for love you need chemistry. Now, if you have a good chemistry between program, student, and teacher, it's a perfect match. Now, the program must fulfill the student's needs and not the opposite way. So if you see me, for instance, as a chef, I have to tell you that I have the best ingredients, ulpan or, in order to have the best dish and fulfill my students' needs.
All right, so I'm hearing about the benefits of the differentiation that this allows for, and also for the scaffolding and that layered building up of the learning. But you mentioned that you work in a charter school where I understand many of the students are not Jewish. So how do you use Ulpan's curriculum and connect Hebrew to their lives? What kind of creative twists maybe do you include to make it your own?
First, they actually choose me. It's an elective course. And I was in shock to see that most of my students are not Jewish. We're not Jewish. Most. 60, 70% of them are Christians, some of them from Iran, some of them from Lebanon. And I asked them, why did you choose me? Why you didn't go to art or PE or whatever? So I've got different answers, but that's not what important here. What important here is to compare this program to other programs that I used to teach, 19 years in elementary school, Jewish schools. In this program, in the other programs, I had one program, one way, many levels. So students struggled, blocked, neglected, and I had no choice. It squeezed my heart. But in Ulpan Or's way, they feel successful, relaxed, comfortable, because they're independent. They have flexibility to choose who they want to work with. They have flexibility to choose their timing. If I would like to work on one page 1,000 times, it's fine. And every time when they're getting tested, they're happy and ready.
Which makes all the difference in the world. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So Yoel, back to you. What did you keep in mind when you were developing this curriculum exactly? What type of learning environment were you using? What was on your radar?
Okay, when Orly and I created this program, what we wanted to achieve on one hand is to have a very well-structured path for teachers, to make them feel secure, to help them to walk with the kids towards a certain goal that they set with our help. But on the other hand, we wanted the teachers to remain creative as much as possible within the boundaries of the curriculum. That way, teachers could express something on their own, like a musician performing a piece by a certain composer. So the composer sort of, he has already the notes written, but the performer puts his heart, his soul into that. And that's what we wanted to allow the teachers to do. Like Orit mentioned, for instance, when they learn the song, you could just follow the curriculum and learn the song very well and know it and sing it and enjoy, have fun. But on the other hand, as Orit mentioned, she created a song festival. Kids make their own songs, their own vocabulary, their own pieces, their own dialogues. That way, both the teachers and the kids enjoy, as I mentioned previously, they own the language. It's not something that's superficial for them. It's something that eventually comes on from within. And that's what we want to achieve.
Memorization versus mastery.
Exactly,
And that's what we're going for. All right, well, I can't imagine a better way, a more pleasurable way to learn. I'm always down to better my Hebrew. Let's do it. Yoel,
it's a deal.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.23 shekels to the American dollar and 2.58 shekels to the Canadian dollar. And finally, for the latest updates and news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as to our newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Aaron Porras. Be well. Thank you for watching.